Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you ever so much for joining us for our webinar on 5 tips for planning in a digital world. Just before we get started, just to let you know, a bit of housekeeping. We don't think this is going to last more than about sort of 30 to 40 minutes, so hopefully it'll be nice and short for you. And that includes a little bit of time at the end for any questions that you may have. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, then at the bottom of the screen you'll see a little Q&A button. So if you just pop your questions in there, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the webinar. Okay, so who will you be hearing from today? So we have Daz, our head of digital, who's going to start the presentation for us. You'll be hearing from Faye, who's our senior account executive at Quantum, and Faye's going to touch on some of the really amazing examples that we've got to show you, just how digital can really aid your brand plans. And you'll also be hearing from me. I'm the head of planning, Jodie, and I'll be taking you, with the help of Daz and Faye, through some of the top tips that we've got for you today. Okay, so some of you will already know us, but for those that don't, we're Quantum. We're a brand experience agency based in Bournemouth, down on the south coast, which I'm sure most of you will have probably seen in the news over the past few months. Now, as an agency, we're really passionate about helping brands to create the best experiences, both in-store, online, and also out in the field through experiential activations. And what do we mean by the best experiences? Well, we mean experiences that really change behavior and ultimately sell products, meaning that the experience is better for the consumer and better for you. After all, that's what we're here for. Okay, so why are we here today and what we're going to be talking about? Well, amazingly, we are already at the end of July, which I personally can't quite believe, almost hitting into August. I'm sure many of you will have already started or are just about to start your brand planning for 2021. And this year, perhaps more than any other, is going to be a bit of a challenge unless anyone's got any sort of crystal balls available. So to help you along the way, we wanted to share with you both why and how, by thinking a little bit differently about digital, you can really smash your 2021 brand planning. So for any of you who've been to any of our webinars before, you'll know that this isn't a sales pitch. We aim to give you guys some really tangible takeaways that you can go away and take with you and put to good use. So to that end, we've put together 5 top tips that hopefully will really help influence your thinking and help you create a plan for next year that will give you and your brand the best chances of success. So why do we think this would be an interesting webinar to look at? Well, the fact remains that for a lot of brands, digital is still being treated as its own sort of separate department or sort of a specialist arm within marketing teams. In fact, brand plans tend to have sort of like digital sections and things like that. And really nowadays, digital needs to be so much more than that. Our consumers don't see any barrier between the physical and digital, and neither should we. It's no longer should we be treating it as a sort of a separate channel. Because in fact, if it's done well and really integrated as part of sort of a seamless joined up approach and working in concert with every part of your plan, it can really add huge value, no matter whether you're activating through on or offline activities. And one thing that's always that may be apparent but is not always acknowledged is that no matter what your product or brand or target audience is, digital really is key. And though it may be sort of affecting things in indirect channels, it's absolutely true that it's got to be a big part of your planning, and linking it in that way, it's not going anywhere, and it's certainly not going to change anytime soon. So just to illustrate that, we have put this slide together just to give you a breakdown of how some of our key audience demographics are using digital and how digital influences those audiences in slightly different ways. So starting with our sort of baby boomer as an example, 65% of those use various social networking sites, and they all index very highly when it comes to the amount of research that they're undertaking before purchase. So digital is a really key area at an early stage in the buying journey for that audience. For the Gen Xers, generally very, very busy people with careers and kids and responsibilities to juggle, extremely heavy users of email and constantly connected to their smartphones to keep up to date with everything that's going on. For our lovely millennials, they shop online more than any other group, and they spend a ton of time on social media across various platforms, and heavily influenced by key individuals and influential groups, but also by reviews, and that plays a massive role in whatever they're looking at, whether it's products, holidays, or where to go to eat. And finally, our Gen Zs, they're the first generation that has grown up in a truly digital world. They're heavy users of tablets, apps, social gaming. No longer do they call or text, it's FaceTime and WhatsApp. They're totally sort of digital natives. So you can see that no matter who we're targeting, all of these individuals and all of our markets or audiences are heavily influenced by digital. And there's a key reason why and how digital needs to play a truly integrated role in your 2021 plans.
Cool, thanks, Jody. Okay, so obviously now it's clear, hopefully, that digital it's an important medium for all of us. So we're going to jump into the tips and take a look at how these are going to be helpful for your plans for next year. And first up, tip number one that we felt was really important is that if you haven't already, you really need to start social listening. And what is this? It's all about using real-time live data. It helps us to be more agile as brand owners, and not just think of planning, as once or twice yearly activity, but we can use it to improve our activities, on the go, which is incredible. And, now in the past that might not have been possible, but with the social listening tools available today, it really gives us the chance to do that. So, we can truly understand what our audience is saying about us at any given time. And let's face it, as Jody touched on, this is extremely important in normal times, never mind the world that we find ourselves in now. But everything's changing, before our very eyes. How can we be expected to trust insights and data reports from 3, 6, 12 months, or years ago, like we used to? When things are changing so quickly, we just can't do that. And it's safe to say it's just not that way of working just isn't accurate enough anymore, and it isn't quite as insightful as we used to consider it to be. So what is social listening exactly? And how can this work in your favor when brand planning for the year ahead? Well, firstly, it's essentially a form of digital intelligence. And that is the reason why, it's not just used, obviously, by brands, marketeers, it's used by journalists, by, the police and other law enforcement agencies too. And it works by taking data from a vast number of sources and channels, which I think is really key. It's not just social media, as it sometimes, gets confused as. So, for those of you who haven't had too much experience with social listening, well, how does it work? Well, essentially it trawls online conversations. We're all constantly online on our phones, on various different channels, talking to various people. And it monitors the content that is posted across, your Twitters, your Facebooks, your Instagrams, your YouTubes. And it cleverly kind of turns these millions of conversations into tangible insights every single day. And the best part of that is that we can, as brand owners, we can track mentions of our brand, the name of a campaign we might be running, a hashtag, our latest product, an event we're activating at, or even a more general topic, that you'd like to learn more about, say alcohol-free beers or vegan foods or whatever it might be. And then the great thing is that we can segment these conversations further. So we can break that down by audience, and break that down into what our exact audience thinking or prospective target audience is thinking. And we can even split that data further, into positive and negative statements so that we can quickly learn, what's working and what's not from our activities. So if we're running an event, we can see, what the attendees are liking about the event and what they're not, which is hugely rich data. And it really helps us to scope our plans based on what our customers are actually saying about our brands, our products right now. And if you think of it as a focus group, thousands or even millions of your ideal customers, which, let's face it, will cost an absolute fortune in the world of research. And although here I've focused on the live data we can access, it's important to note that using social listening, we can also look back over time, over the 1.3 trillion public online posts that are dating back to around 2008, when this kind of technology started to begin. So if that, if you're keen to monitor your brand or product performance over a stated time period, then that's absolutely possible too. And although the social media data is really rich, as I mentioned earlier, social listening tools offer much more content than that, because the data we can source includes various credible news sources too, such as The Guardian, BBC News, Forbes, Google News, Huffington Post, to name a few, as well as different blog sources as well. So if we take WordPress, which a lot of you will know, creates websites and it powers a large part of the internet, and then other places like Business Insider or IMDb, which a lot of people use for TV shows and movies and that sort of thing, and many more different channels. So social listening really is much more than just social media mentions. It's a really diverse data set that we can use to help see which of our activities or campaigns or products are doing really well, and which just aren't hitting the spot with our consumers across the internet, which is amazing. But down to it, does it work? Well, it absolutely does. And just to give a nice example of how this can be used in action, this is a great example from Virgin Holidays. And instead of simply paying copywriters or travel experts to update their travel guides on each of their destinations every year, Virgin have kind of switched this around and are now using social listening to do this for them. And they've done this with the launch of something called the Trending Travel Guide. And how does this work? Well, by using social listening tools, they're analyzing hundreds of thousands of social media posts to help them find the top destinations or beaches, experiences, restaurants, attractions in their chosen locations that they're writing about. So in terms of a content marketing strategy, this means that their content is always fresh, it's always up to date, and most importantly, it's completely relevant to their target audience because they're getting this information from their target audience. And they've seen some great results from taking this approach too. For example, visitors to their guide view 15% more pages than those browsing other editorial content on their site. The average session duration is 75% higher when compared to their legacy content too, which is a massive improvement. And the Trending Travel Guide has won a number of awards too, one being from the Drum for the best leisure and travel strategy at the Digital Ads Awards in Europe too. So again, very credible piece of work. And it's a really clever way to use social listening to your brand's advantage without having to conduct tiresome, timely, really expensive research, or run focus groups, or speak to lots of consumers individually, as we have had to do in the past. So we definitely think this is something you can use to your advantage when it comes to planning your activities for next year. And of course, it's a massive beast, and we would happily obviously speak to you about that further outside of the webinar too. Well, Jody, are you around?
Sorry about that.
Were you muted?
Thanks, Des. Yeah, so next tip number 2, is looking at how we can bring physical and digital together in store. You may look at this and see this as a piece of point of sale and think that's not digital. And whilst in the past that would have been true, now we can start to look at ways to bring digital to life in really new and interesting ways in store. And we're not talking about really expensive TVs or digital displays. We're talking about a really simple piece of technology that can utilize the shopper's smartphone and can actually really help with your compliance levels as well. So in today's world, we know that shoppers are seeking touch-free dynamic experiences, and it's our job as brand owners and agencies to make sure that we're really delivering on those needs. And as such, we see brands really heavily investing in amazing digital experiences and creating incredible content. But the issue comes when it's not delivered in the right place or the right time. And of course, the magic is always about making sure that we're contacting our shoppers and our consumers at a time when they want to be contacted with relevant and engaging information. So we're looking at ways of doing that. We also know that 71% of consumers use their smartphones in store. And from those consumers that are using those smartphones in store, 83% of them are saying that they want their shopping experience more personalized and more interesting to them. So one way that we can do this is by utilizing the amazing digital technology that's now in the market. An example of this is something that we use called TapScan. Now, this is pretty revolutionary in the sense that it helps us improve both shopper engagement and point of sale compliance as well. So first and foremost, we no longer need those really expensive in-store displays. Shoppers can simply tap the point of sale unit and with their smartphone, and the NFC technology within the smartphone allows them to unlock a whole world of richer content, from interactive technology to point of sale offers, videos and competitions. Ultimately, what that means is that we're creating better shopper engagement during the visit and post the in-store experience. And of course, the beauty of it being digital is that every single interaction at every single store is logged in real time, and you can monitor and measure and optimize as you need to see, as you see fit. So just very quickly, a couple of really great examples that we see here of brands like Lego bringing digital and physical together. So in-store displays that allow them to sort of unlock augmented reality experiences that can help sort of promote gameplay and excitement in store. Another great example is Ray-Ban, who use this technologies to bring their products to life, showing customers in store just how their glasses are going to look on them using filters. So they no longer even need to walk around the store. They can just select whichever frames they think is going to fit and have a look at how they're going to look at them. Really interesting in sort of a post-COVID world as a way to sort of encourage people to try things on trial. We also know that well, anyone who's ever tried to do any activation in store knows that POS compliance is pretty much a major issue. In fact, the average that that a lot of our FMCG brands see in terms of point of sale items that are actually cited, we see about sort of a 40 to 50% wastage in terms of items at point of sale that just never even see the light of day. So the interesting thing with this contactless NFC technology is that when the item is cited, the staff member can actually just simply tap the display, and that then instantly sends a report to the brand owner. There's no need for QR codes or difficult sort of difficult links to find or anything like that. It's just really simple and effortless. Now, as that again is registered all in real time, it means that we can, as brand owners, see when items have been cited, which stores have been yet to cite their items, and take appropriate action. So even on from a geolocation perspective, from understanding which stores have been activated and which haven't, we're able to do that in real time. So super simple process, just to sort of explain how it works. The NFC chip is inserted in the item of production. It's then distributed, the staff activate it, we can check compliance, and then effectively allow follow-up calls to the stores or sending out of other point of sale units if there's been an issue with the one supplied. But then the really interesting part is being able to sort of see how shoppers can engage with your promotions and actually sort of bring them to life in store and measure it far more effectively.
Cool, thanks Jodie, and hi everyone. So our third tip today then for using digital in your brand planning is all around creating new levels of engagement in retailer or customer meetings. Now for many of you, no matter how great your product or brand is, one challenge is always getting in front of the right buyers in the right place and at the right time. Traditionally, that's been through face-to-face meetings, but now we're really looking at a time where working from home is much more likely to be the new normal for many of us. If this is even the case for half the working week, imagine how much tougher it will be to actually get in front of both existing and also new prospective buyers. This is why we really need to be even more creative than ever and not just get retailers time, but capture their imagination and get them to stock our brands too. It's a fact that your buyers were super busy people already, yet in March alone, supermarket sales surged by 43%. It's really clear that staying in touch and keeping your brand in the front of your buyer's mind is absolutely essential. And as I've mentioned, when we can't get in front of them, how do we engage our buyers in a motivating, exciting, and impactful way? Well, by doing something a little bit different. One idea that we found worked really well is to turn these traditionally physical meetings into a virtual event, which is what we have recently done for one of our clients. By creating an interactive digital escape room experience, we could replace and invigorate their standard approach to customer meetings with something that little bit more special. We used this online experience to bring the brand story, products, and key messaging to life in a way that customers had simply never seen before. This was really fun, engaging, and interactive, all while giving participants the chance to get down to business too. And to bring this to life was quite a simple process, really. Firstly, invitations were sent out in the form of a locked acrylic box, only opened via a secret code, and inside was a printed invitation and VR headset for the buyers to both use and keep. The actual virtual reality experience itself centered on an immersive product and brand story presentation for participants. The escape room ensured this interactive video call was really like no other, where customers had to navigate using physical clues and a digital microsite. And of course, this all provided a real buzz to lead up into the final meeting, which was then a great chance to get down to business. And this approach can be used in a number of ways, so networking with clients, so a chance to touch base in a forward-thinking way and break away from the standard Zoom meeting, engaging them in your brand, creating a positive experience that's completely memorable for all participants involved, bringing to life NPD, range reviews, promotional calendars and plans, and really getting them on board. And finally, ultimately, giving customers a reason to list your brand and providing a positive experience to really tip the balance. And the best part of this is that it really does work. Here are a couple of quotes from both a buyer and an account manager, which brings to life the success of the event. So the buyer said, "The VR experience was amazing. We haven't looked forward to an online call this much." And our friends at Edgewell saying, "I made more progress with my buyer than in the last month of trying to get hold of her on the phone and emails."
Well, thank you, Faye. Cool. So, and our fourth tip we'd like to share with you is around how digital gives us the opportunity to make our budgets really stretch too. Now, as Jodie mentioned again earlier, I think some of you will be challenged with budget restrictions moving into next year. And as marketeers, it just means you need to be that little more creative to make those budgets stretch. And I think the flexibility of digital as a platform, it really gives us the opportunity to do that. If we think to our traditional forms of media, whether that's TV, huge events or that require much more planning, require more management, and often more money. So digital is a great platform for really maximising the budgets that we do have available to us. But how do we do that? What are the real opportunities? Well, it's safe to say there are tons of ways we can use digital to our advantage in our plans. And one way that one thing we've been working on recently is all about how supermarket shopping habits have and are going to continue to change. I'm sure all of you can relate to this, the fact that nearly 60% of us are spending up to 20 minutes standing in a queue outside of retailers nowadays. And that's just one example of that change. And how are we spending that new time in our lives? Very specific. It can be long, it can be tedious. And unless you're with family or friends, for example, then chances are that time's being spent on your mobile phone. And even when we visit, a pub or a restaurant nowadays, the likelihood is that we're encouraged to either sit outside or as a minimum order our food and drinks from our phones. So, whether we like it or not, as a culture, customers are going to be using their mobile phones even more than usual right now. And not just that, but they're using it in locations where they're significantly closer to our products and with a significantly higher propensity to purchase as well, because, that's what they're at the shop, at the pub, at the restaurant for. And this is just an opportunity that we've never really had before, certainly not on this scale. So how can we maximize that? Well, one way that we've been thinking about how to use that is by making the queue work for you. So, because this new shopper routine is the ideal opportunity to get in front of your target audience, stood literally meters away from your products, with highly targeted, even retailer specific, digital ads on their mobile phones. And thanks to geo-targeting and the flexibility that we've spoken about with digital ads that provides us with, we can reach anywhere from a handful of stores to a nationwide campaign targeting multiple retailers, and it can be turned around really quickly as well. Yes, this is great for supporting your biggest retailers, but the cost-effective nature of digital means you can also consider this type of activity for your smaller accounts too. Accounts we might not normally be able to give as much time or as budget that we would like to. So, take off licenses, for example, where sales there have jumped 24% in the past few months. Imagine what those numbers could be with some support from us and from brands too. And just some of the ways that this can really work, although it's great for announcing things, so great for announcing new product listings, for announcing product launches, in-store promotions. When we look at how it can maximize things, so we're going to touch on this in a second, but sunny weekends, barbecue weekends, the return of sports, that are coming back, people are going to be, spending more time, eating and drinking either in their gardens or in pub gardens where they can watch these things. It's a great opportunity for upselling too. So, digital vouchering, cross-brand partnerships, and for convincing people as well. So, whether this is on-pack competitions that, we're really relying on consumers getting in front of our fixture in order to see them, whereas digital gives us an opportunity to get that in front of them before they've even set foot into the store. And as I mentioned about the weather as well, there are other tons great ways that we can maximize this, and not just reach the right audience, but reach them at just the right time too. So, given that a lot of our clients, for example, have seasonal key selling periods, utilizing things such as weather-based ads can be super effective. So, for example, this can be done quite easily by creating some sunny specific creative, let's call it, and it will only show to consumers when the sun's shining. So, the weather, it really is a great opportunity, and this propensity to purchase we've mentioned as well, that does increase, as the weather gets good and people want to get out and about with friends and family. So it can be a great solution for brands going into either this summer or planning for next. And just for your peace of mind as well, a great example of this in action. So we've got a couple, one would come from Budweiser, who made a really great campaign about dropping the price of their beer and providing customers with giveaway prizes based on the weather. So, for example, every time the weather hit 100 degrees over in the States throughout July, they were going to reward 25 social media followers a prize. And that was ranging from anything from an inflatable pool to a lawn chair to gift cards to even bags of ice. So, and also when the weather surpassed a certain degree, they would also drop the price of their Bud Ice line by $1 for each degree it was over that temperature. So it's a really clever, creative way of utilizing this type of activity. But I think what's even more exciting for brand owners is that it also keeps consumers engaged for the entire month as well, because every time the weather picked up, chances are they'll be back checking their social media pages for the next giveaway or the next price drop to get involved with as well. And just to prove it works the other way too, this is a lovely campaign and a great example from McDonald's, who really wanted to drive downloads of their McDelivery app. And they use this technology really cleverly on one very simple insight: the bad weather conditions greatly increase the appeal of food delivery services, which, I'm sure we can all agree is the case. So they decided to employ real-time weather signals to help it deliver ads at the moment rain hit in specific different postcodes. Now these ads were shown during lunch and dinner times, and were all linked to the McDonald's app in the App Store or Google Play. And the ads they delivered were really simple, simply stating it's starting to rain near you while you go out. And this simple execution, it really worked for them. They got over 20,000 app downloads, and at a cost of less than 45p per install, which is, a really good ROI for them.
Cool. Some other great ways then that we can use digital as well, and without spending a fortune, is by running online competitions and sampling activities. So here's an example of a recent promotion that we did recently to help Kopparberg with the launch of their brand new hard seltzer. So Kopparberg wanted to get samples in the hands of consumers at a time when lockdown was just about easing. So we helped them launch the Summer Delivered campaign to do just that. Social media users were invited to nominate themselves to be one of the first to try hard seltzer, and after hundreds of winners were selected at random, we turned up in true style in a pretty cool Copperberg Defender to not only deliver our product, but deliver on a brand experience too. And here is another example of how we as a team are currently delivering a creative digital campaign for Copperberg. So the Connected Festival on Pack promotion was created in lieu of a packed summer festival event season this year. And with Copperberg really being associated with music and the outdoors, we had to think of a way to bring festivals to consumers nationwide this summer. And how are we doing this? Well, we're giving one winner a festival in their own home with a top DJ, but we are also live streaming the DJ set online, which has enabled us to really extend the reach and seamlessly connect two physical and digital experiences together. Consumers entering are guided to a microsite that is perfectly suited to Copperberg's target demographic and really helps bring to life the home festival experience that we are creating.
Cool. And the last of our 5 tips, so number 5, and this one's all about embracing the technology that we already have access to. Jodie mentioned earlier the term digital. It used to be the job of one of the marketing team in the corner of the room. But the fact that it's so much more than that means that your e-commerce, digital, or social teams, they really need to be a part of the wider 2021 brand planning conversations. Because in reality, these are the people with the know-how on what actually can be done and what tech is out there that you just might not be aware of, or at least might not be using yet. And as part of that, getting closer to our traditional versus our online sales is absolutely key too. Sorry about that. So yeah, I think when you look at this table here, you can see that the huge spike, our eyes get drawn to that huge spike in sales since lockdown. But even long before that, so you can see this one blue line here. It's the only line really that's been increasing, and that is of course through e-commerce, which are growing year on year, no signs of slowing down. And yet, no, that won't come as a surprise to any of you. But how we can use that to our advantage, that is where it's really interesting. And one way to do that is by making your existing channels work much harder for you. So, taking our e-commerce channels or websites where there's so much rich information that it can provide us with that, information we just can't get from more traditional channels. So getting closer to that can really help. And this is something that we do. So, from auditing clients' websites, for example, it's just amazing, what we can uncover using all that data that's been building up for years and years in the background. Simply tweaking copy to increase click-through rates or shuffling content around to really improve customer journeys and session times. These things can really impact our brand much further down the road too, because, when we figure this out in the online space, that is a much cheaper way of doing it than making mistakes, when we're out in the field and we're doing bigger campaigns, whether that's, out in the supermarkets or pubs, restaurants, and wherever selling our products. Another one is absolutely to start benefit from messaging. And this is another really simple yet effective one. And if messaging isn't part of your strategy, then we would consider you thinking about it moving forwards. Now, I'm sure everyone, on this call has run email campaigns, yet the number that will have run, messaging specific campaigns, let's say, whether that's through WhatsApp Business, Facebook Messenger, or even more traditional SMS, is probably likely to be a much lower number of you. And that's even when pretty much all of our consumers are using and engaging with messenger services, not just on a weekly or a daily basis, but an hourly one. We all know that everyone is on Messenger, using messaging services all the time. And when you compare the rates of email, for example, so a good email campaign these days, you're probably looking at say 10% open rate versus ones done through Messenger or messages, which are closer to 80%. And that really makes us wonder why it's not a bigger part of our strategy and our plans. And it's a similar picture when we look at click-through rates too. So in emails, generally you get a 1% click-through rate and you've done pretty well. That's closer to 20%, in Messenger, because if people get a message through their phone, it feels more personalized. And it really should be a bigger part of our plans and strategies. And the great thing is there's so many affordable ways for us to do that and integrate them too. And the last one, final point, this is all about personalization, how this can be used creatively to get our brand name out there and amplify our voice. Now, yes, personalization has been around for a long time, from our names being spelt wrong on our Starbucks cups cups to hoping that we can find a bottle of Coke with our obscure nickname on or kids' names on. But there's the feeling that personalization powered by big data, it could be the advertising of the future. And the video you can see rolling here is from pet care brand Puppo, who are owned by Mars. And they actually created a bespoke ad for every registered dog in New York, which is more than 100,000 dogs. And they pushed them out across digital platforms. Now, this is an incredible creative way of launching a brand through an almost mass targeted approach. And the type of activity can then be tracked, so whether that's through mobile search volumes or general direct searches or increases in, brand search traffic by tracking customer URLs and links and that sort of thing. It's just creative digital thinking that can really help your brand stand out from the crowd, whilst costing a fraction of other forms of traditional media too, which hits home, why we think that this is another area that we really need to be looking into to make our budget stretch going into next year.
Awesome. Okay, thanks ever so much, Daz. Okay, so just as a bit of a roundup, and for you guys, there's 5 tips we've shared with you today. Tip 1, all about the significance of social listening and how we really recommend you take it seriously to both learn and improve your plans going forward and onto the next season. Tip 2, focusing on bringing a digital element to life in your point of sale with technology like TapScan, either for use in the on or off trade, to significantly improve the impact of your point of sale. Tip 3 was Faye's thinking on how we can create sort of more exciting customer encounters. And tip 4, sort of supporting retailers and outlets through digital whilst touching on geo and weather-based targeting opportunities. And finally, the rise of e-commerce and how brands and brand owners really need to be closer to that and embracing the technology that is available out there and making the most of it, and just being in front of the development of various technologies to work out what we can do with them, and not being afraid to test and learn with it as well. Can provide us with some really, really great concepts and campaigns. So in terms of our slides today, that's a wrap. We're just looking at the Q&A box to see if there was any questions throughout.
Yeah, can't see any questions, mate, which is no.
Cool. So just to let you know, we have been recording this so we can send it out to you, and please do feel free to share it with any and all of your colleagues. And naturally, we'll include a link in that email to our diary should you wish to chat about anything that you've heard and enjoyed today. So thanks ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to speaking to you soon.